So now we're going to learn about what loops are. Okay, so a loop is a block of code that we write so that it runs multiple times. There are different kinds of loops in JavaScript. The different kinds of loops are for each, and while loops. Okay, we'll learn about each of these different loops starting now. Okay, so the first loop is a for loop. Okay, so the way you write a for loop is like this. This is a bit complicated, but make sure to remember it. Okay, so we're gonna write for, then in parentheses, we're gonna write a variable. We're gonna create a variable called let's just call it I. That's what everybody calls it. And then we're gonna make I equal 0. Okay, now we're gonna write a semicolon. And next to that, we're gonna write I is less than let's say I is less than 10. Now we're gonna write another semicolon. And now the last thing we're gonna write is I plus, or I plus plus. Okay, so now let's go through each of these little things so we understand what they mean. Okay, so this for loop is going to have a variable called I inside of it. I is always has to be less than 10. Okay, I is going to start from 0 and it's going to stay less than 10 no matter what. I plus plus means I is going to increase by 1. Plus plus basically means it means I equals I plus 1. Okay, so if I equals 10, then when we add 1 to 10, it'll be 11. Okay, but I can be 10. So let's say if I is 0 and we add 1 to I, that will make I 1. Okay, so I'm gonna assume you guys understand that. Now we have something that says I plus plus. Like I said, it will increase by 1 every time the loop runs. Okay, so like I told you guys before, we need to write a block of code. So we use curly braces to write code. And now inside of these curly braces, we're just gonna write something like console.log I. Okay, so this will give you like a little insight of what's happening right now. Okay, you don't have to always use I, but it will show you that now this for loop is gonna run 10 times, and then it's going to write I every single time. It's gonna write the value of I every single time. So we just go back into our browser and then refresh the page and see what happens. Okay, so now let me refresh. So now, do you guys see all these values written inside the console now? Let me stretch it out so you guys can see them all at once. Look at all these values. It says it starts from 0 and it goes all the way to 9, so it's run 10 times. It says 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But what you guys will notice is that if we go back, we wrote I is less than 10. So I should never equal 10. So that's how the for loop knew when to stop. Because it continues all the way until 9, it keeps going up, and then where does it stop? It stops right before it becomes 10. Because you see, I became 10, because it says var I is 0, and it says I is less than 10. So the for loop ran 10 times until it became 9, and then it became 10, but then it reached this block where it says I is less than 10, and then it says, oh wait, it has to be less than 10. So we can't keep running. So it stops the loop and it doesn't run any time. It doesn't run again. So that was for loops. We can also write, we don't have to always write I. We can just write this loop has run, and then we're going to add a space, and then we're just going to write I, and then plus, and then times, and space, and then times. So now if we refresh the page and let's see what happens. This loop has run 0 times. This loop has run 1 time. But you see right here, it's wrong, right? It says 0 times. How can the loop have run 0 times if it ran and then wrote this? So what we have to do is add 1 to this loop, to the number, to the I. So we have to write parentheses around this and then type plus 1. I plus 1. Because this is like an equation, right? So you have to do what's in the parentheses first. If you guys have learned PEMDAS, you have to write what's in the parentheses first, and then it'll add these things around it. So say this loop has run I plus 1 times. So let's see it. Now it says this loop has run 1 times, this loop has run 2 times, this loop has run 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and 6 times. And all the way up to 9. All the way up to 10. So, that was 4 loops. I'm going to pause the recording and see if you guys have any questions.